the comedian before me was Dane Cook.
No.
Yeah, and so we're sitting in yeah, I'm like sitting in the green room with Dane Cook, and it's just me and him. And I'm like, hey man, you're bringing me up, by the way. And he's like, okay, what's your name? I'm like, Matt O'Brien. He goes, Mart O'Brien. I'm like, no, no, no,
Mort?
no. He goes, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, man?
Oh, nothing. How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Welcome to the show.
You know what's crazy? I randomly was watching, like, I went down a loophole of like crazy Tom Cruise videos,
Uh-huh.
and I found one of you doing like the top 10 craziest things
No.
Tom. Yeah, I didn't know you did
What
those
the
things.
fuck? Dude, it's scary. Because I did that job for like 4 years where I was just a YouTube host, and my whole job was I'd come there in the morning and they'd give me a list of these ridiculous titles and they go, make a video about this. Top
So
10
crazy.
craziest Tom Cruise
Yeah.
moments or whatever. And I'm like, all right. And I would just have to research it and then make a video and then just they'd edit it and do all that shit for me. But I probably made 3 to 4 videos Monday to Friday for 4 years. So
Jesus.
it's just like littered. I'm like styrofoam on YouTube, basically. I'm just
It,
everywhere. You
well,
find
it's the thing. I
little
was like,
baby,
I just
get them
wanted to
off.
watch one weird Tom
Yeah,
Cruise video. Then
yeah.
I saw you. I was like, oh, I'll support this guy. I know this guy now. Fine.
Don't fuck them. Don't
Yeah, I know.
support this channel here. This one now.
Yes, deal.
My old employers.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I don't know. So I asked you about the one word. Did you give any thought to like what you want the? I
I
mean, Mike
mean,
Wilmot chose has been, so don't feel too limited to
isn't that
one
too?
word. Yeah,
Wait,
yeah, it's 2 words.
does the one word have to relate to anything, or is it just what any word?
It can. I just like seeing what people come up with. I just find that a funny way to start.
I think the one that I was thought of because Canada Day is coming up, and I miss this word because I never see it anymore. Is maple. I miss maple. There's
Maple.
there's no maple flavoring down
True.
here. There's nothing. People just think it's sugar, and I'm like, man, it's different. It's
You'd
different.
have to go to like a Canadian, one of those like Canadian specific stores if they have that. I remember being in Florida and they had like a Canada store and it
Yeah.
was just like Canadian souvenirs in there. And you're like, this is interesting. I don't know why we need this.
Yeah, there's a thing called Global Market down here, and it has like food from all over the world. And then you'll see like weird little
Uh,
Canadian things. You're like, here's a coffee crisp, here's a packet of gravy. And it's like, yeah, I mean, we
yeah,
should have
yeah. Or
all
you got
these
to go
things
to
anyway.
Epcot or something.
Yeah.
Uh, Here's a guy named Joe on a BMX. He's got a
Exactly.
DUI.
Yeah. He's from Brampton. Yeah.
Yeah. I always like to as well like establish some context for the viewers or listeners. I met you probably back in like 2011. You had come to my college with Comedy Records to do a show there, and I was like, I wanted to try comedy, but I hadn't done anything yet. And I remember going up to you and asking you, and I don't know if you remember this. The piece of advice you gave to me was, you're like, do open mics for a year straight every single day. And if at the end of it you don't want to cry into a pizza, then you probably should keep doing comedy.
Or, I mean, the same advice goes opposite. If you do cry into a pizza, I think you're doing something right too. So
Yeah.
that's the secret in that advice, I guess. I know I never knew what to tell people because even back in 2011, I'd been doing 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I guess I've been doing it 5 or 6 years at the point, but yeah, I never knew what to tell people. But that it's like anything. You just do it a million times, and if you don't like it, stop. If you
Yeah.
do, keep going.
Yeah. I guess like I think a lot of people when they're trying something, they feel like they need that validation they know that they want to start, but they need someone else to be like, you should start. And then you can
Yeah.
kind of go, oh yeah, okay, I could do that. Because people ask me about podcasting all the time. How do you do that? I'm like, just do it. Just I don't know what, just record it and upload it. It's not it's not very rocket science. Like it doesn't have to be fancy at all. Like, look at TikTok. It's just like the most like pieced together shit gets like 1 million views, you know?
Yeah, it's literally like anything. It's like you could walk up to somebody that works at a bank and be like, oh, "How do I fucking get started here? Like, why do you?" And
Yeah,
they'd be
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"You just got to do it. You just walk into a bank and apply to be in a bank. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Just it's anything entertainment industry wise. People are just like, I don't even know where to start. It's like there's a million places to start, and just try one of
Yeah.
them.
It baffles a lot of people that like it's an even like a possibility though too. Like I remember seeing you on, was it Video on Trial that you did?
Yeah,
So that's like you're kind of just like, what, like how did that, you know what I mean? But once you get into doing comedy, you really realize like, oh yeah, you're talking to other comedians who are like, go to this site for auditions, or like you meet somebody who's like, I like your stuff, I want to manage you, and then they get you the auditions. It's
that's
opportunities
just
present themselves.
being
Yeah.
around. I mean, it's funny you mentioned the video on trial thing because I've told a few people this story, but the only reason I got it was I went on a tour of MuchMusic with my journalism class, and we sat in the audience for one of the MuchMusic shows, and then I've been doing comedy I think 2 weeks, like,
Nice.
and I had business cards made up because I was a big deal,
Yeah.
and I handed it to one of the hosts, Matt Babel, actually. And I was like, "Hey, I'm a comedian. How do I get on video on trial?" Like just blatantly in during commercial breaks. And he's like, "Well, the producer's right over there if you want to talk to him." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay." And I had one video on my MySpace of me doing stand up. He watched it in front of me. He goes, "Okay." He's like, "Man, we're filming this Saturday if you're around." And and then that's
That's
how I got into video on
amazing.
trial. And that was like so early in my entertainment career where I'm just like, this business is dumb. If that's how you can get. And I remember talking to comics in Toronto that were dying to get on this show. And they're like, "Who
Yeah.
the hell are you?" I'm like, "I still don't know yet. I don't know how I did it. You just
Yeah.
got to ask, I
You just gotta
guess."
ask people. You just gotta come in
Yeah.
and ask them. Yeah, I miss that, like, because I did a lot of crazy shit like that too. But it wasn't because I was crazy. It was because I didn't understand the necessary like steps to actually, you know, get an opportunity like that. And I think like as you get more experienced, you take less risks per se because you're like, oh well, I wouldn't want to, you know, they're filming a show, like who am I to interrupt, you know, the thing and go talk to the guy, and no, I don't want to do that. But when you're young and excited, you're like, hey
You're
man, can I get
bold.
on?
Yeah, you're
You
just so
just,
bold because you don't know anything and you're just clinging to
yeah,
anything. That's
yeah,
what
yeah.
I do have to remind myself of that. I mean, there's a lot of that in LA of people just being like, "What is that? Give me that," kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
like, "Oh
yeah.
yeah, that's how you got to act down here," kind of thing. So
Yeah, or else
it's
someone else will do it for you.
someone else will get it.
Man,
So
I
you got it.
remember doing a tour of when I was visiting there, and I ran into you. I saw Paramount, and I did like a little tour of the Paramount, and they were talking about how casting worked back in the day, like in the early days of film. People would just crowd outside of that gate, like just hundreds of normal people, and the casting directors would stand there and go, "That one, that one, and that one," and then you made it into Hollywood.
That's it. Then you're just an
And people just
actor.
wait there, like maybe I'll get picked today. Like I'm like, that is so wild that that's just how it worked.
Yeah, I mean, it is still kind of happening that way, but now it's all online, so you don't actually have to physically see these people pointing or
Yeah,
not pointing at you, which is nice.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
it's yeah, it's a wild place. It's very
How do you
dumb.
like living there? Because like, how long have you been in LA for?
Almost 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah, which does not feel like it at all. I really like it now, but it takes a lot to really like it down here.
Mm,
And I've heard that
kind of
from a
finding
lot
your
of people.
footing, right?
Oh my God. Going from a city where you're just hopping on the subway and zipping around like Toronto to here where it's everything's just so spread out. And also when I got here, like no one knew who I am or was. And it was just everyone talks about restarting your career, and it was completely restarting it.
Wow.
And so much being like, I had a fine career in Canada. I was
Yeah,
living perfectly
yeah,
fine. And I'm like, what did I just do? Why did I just fuck everything up for a
yeah,
roll of the
yeah.
dice? But after, yeah, just working my ass off, it's finally paying off and it's
Mm.
going well. And, it's definitely worth it. It's unfortunately the entertainment industry in Canada has forced people like me to do this. I wish it wasn't the case, but I do really like it down here. The opportunities are stuff I would never be able to get up there. So
That's what I mean. Like some like people always advocate, and I've advocated this too a bunch of times on this podcast about, you don't necessarily have to move to big metropolitan cities to, get opportunity because of the internet. And you can kind of, people go viral from random towns and places, right? And they stay there and they just make all their money off of online revenue. But there is something to be said about being in the actual city and like running into someone who gives you an opportunity, or like just being at a specific place where more of those decision makers happen to be around.
It's true. It's just it's an old school way of doing it. Old school now is just being around the city,
being in the real world.
I know, but it has worked. Like some friends of mine used to write for Conan, and because I was in town, they'd be like, "Hey, do you want to do a sketch on Conan today?"
Wow.
And I would just go into the studio, do the sketch, and be on Conan that night, kind of thing. So like little things like that. Like if I wasn't here, I wouldn't get. And that's happened.
Is there
like,
another Matt O'Brien on the Conan show too?
The head writer is named Matt O'Brien, and I finally met him.
Dude, that's so funny.
First time I went in, because our IMDb's were the same page for the longest time.
When you Google, both of your images come up together in the little.
Yeah, I saw him in the hallway at Conan, and he goes, "You," and I'm like, "Fucking you!" There he is. And because I would get booked on so many gigs because they thought I was the head writer for Conan, and I never corrected them. And I told him that. I was like, because his headshot would be on the poster and then I would show up. And he's like, "Are you the guy doing all those gigs with my headshot?" And I was like, "Yeah, a few of them. Absolutely." So it's, it's
so fucking funny. I'm just going to start calling people and telling them I'm Aziz Ansari or something.
You might as well. Yeah, I get it. Talk about boldness. I mean, that's boldness right there.
Yeah. I book like the Sony Center or something.
Yeah, just show up.
Hey, I don't know what to tell you. He sent me. So
you're stupid for doing this. So whatever. But he was
validate.
He was cool with it. There's also a Mike O'Brien that used to be on SNL that's now in town. And we keep getting mixed up as well. It's pretty funny. Considering Matt O'Brien is such like a common name, there really should be more of us in the entertainment industry, I think.
Yeah. Oh, like there's another John. It's so funny. The name of this podcast is The Johnny Rogers Show, and there's literally another older guy who does like, I think like Elvis covers and like old covers. And his show is called The Johnny Rogers Show, but it's like a live experience where he plays music.
Yeah. Cool.
I'm like, God damn. All right. I guess we'll both share the name in different genres.
There's a comedy show in town that's called Rod Stewart Live. And it's just a bar show. It's just a comedy bar show, but they said they'll get people showing up being like, "We thought, what is this? It says Rod Stewart Live."
That's
crazy. You really thought he was going to show up to this pub in fucking Silver Lake?
Did you look at the address? Did you Google Maps us at all?
Yeah. It's pretty stupid.
My God. What made you want to take journalism for school?
Honest to God, I watched Anchorman.
Yeah?
I had no idea. I graduated high school and I had no idea what I was going to do. I took like 2 years off because I'm like, I have no idea what I want to do. And then a friend of mine went to Durham College in Oshawa, and I was like, he's my good friend. I'm going to follow this guy. And I saw that there was journalism. I'm like, I like TV and I read the news. So what the hell? Might as well. And luckily I did, because they had like a video editing course. So I got to learn how to edit videos.
Oh, nice.
And a photography course was part of it. And then I got to intern through that at MTV Canada. So I got to do a bunch of TV work. And so that
before you even started comedy, right?
Before I even started. Yeah.
Yes.
I'd kind of been dipping into Toronto to do some open mics and stuff like that. But after I finished interning at MTV, then I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a comedian instead, kind of thing. But luckily I have this journalism degree.
And little did you know that part of being a comedian in 2023 is you also have to be a video editor too. So
exactly, it paid off in spades. Paid off,
man. That college degree paid for itself.
Yeah, so it worked out. I don't regret it, and like considering what people spend on college down here too, I'm like, I think I was like I spent, I think it was like $5,000 a year or something, and like it's paid off. I don't care. I got to meet some fun people.
when I hear American student loan debt, like I'm like, you're fucked. Like,
Hundreds of that.
how do you get out of that ever? Like, I
You
don't
just don't.
understand
You don't.
how
I
it
got
could
friends
cost
that are
that
like
much.
300 grand, 400 grand in debt, and like that's it. It's mental. Yeah, there's
It's
a
no wonder
lot.
everyone's just starting OnlyFans and trying to be influencers. And
Just
like, you're
J
like,
and O on the
I need
internet
to hit the
for
lottery.
I know.
Fuck, I need to pay this off. That's
It's
fucking
insane.
nuts. Now,
But
did you have one of the last like Comedy Now specials, right? Like one of the before they went off. Like, what was that experience like? Like finding out that you're gonna do that and then preparing for it, and then obviously knowing that it's gonna be like one of the last ones on there too.
yeah, it was the very last one. I got off stage and there was guys like crowbarring the set down, like ripping it apart. They're like, all right, we're fucking done here, and just like burning it.
Oh my
And
god.
but that was another case of the boldness that I had 3 years into comedy. I did a guest spot at Absolute in Toronto, and the Comedy Now booker happened to be there, and she was brand new at the time. I think she got fired after she booked all of us actually. She booked like a bunch of like new comic. Like I was
Yeah.
3 years in, and she was like, "Do you have an hour of
Wow.
material?" And I lied and said yes, because I'm like, I'm not going to turn this opportunity down.
No.
And other comics I was with, she was like, "Do you have an hour?" Like she was just going through the green room at
Yeah.
Absolute, and they were like, "No, what are you talking about? I've been doing this 3 years." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Yeah,
Absolutely."
yeah, yeah.
And so then
Because
I
you knew you weren't gonna do an hour. Like, did you do a full hour on
I
the?
did 52 minutes.
Okay, okay, okay.
And it was, yeah, they cut it down to 30, and that's even being generous. It should not have made television. But I mean, it did light a
But
fire
cool
under my ass.
opportunity, yeah.
Yeah, I like rented out event spaces because I had like 5 months to make an hour. I had like 10 or 15 good minutes. And then I just rented out event spaces,
Wow.
headlined them, and worked on it, and yeah, then did it. And it was the very, very last ones, because after they were like, "This is it. This is." But
Yeah.
that's the craziest thing about Canada too. And I've heard a couple Comedy Now comics say this is like, I did a comedy special, the biggest comedy special you can do in Canada, and then the next day I went back to my day job, and that was it. And I still had to work my day job for a
Crazy.
couple years after that. Like it was surreal. It was very odd, but
That's
grateful
the
for the opportunity.
Canadian industry though. Like, dude,
Yeah.
I when I was doing that YouTube job, like those videos, some of them are like in the millions of views. And I was still like serving at a breakfast restaurant. And literally, this is just before COVID. I was saying to myself, I'm like, man, this sucks. Like, I need to quit this job and maybe just do something else along with it because it wasn't paying much, the YouTube thing. So I was like, I need to do something else. And then I got literally recognized in while I'm serving a table that I'm serving. They're like, hey, I think I saw you on a YouTube video yesterday. And I was like, yeah, that's me. Like,
Anyway, do you get ketchup and
do you
everything
want
here?
egg? How do you want your eggs? Like, it's so stupid. It feels so stupid. You're like, man, people I used to see on TV, you think like, oh, they're killing it. It's like, no, they just got recorded and then published. That's it.
Yeah. I'd see people at my day job. They'd be like, "Hey, aren't you the guy from Video on Trial?" And I like working at the Apple store as a genius, like fixing piss-covered phones. And I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
that's me anyway. I'm covered in piss, and I'll fix your phone. Sure."
Piss covered phones. I
Yeah.
forgot you worked at the Apple store in the Eden Center.
Eaton Center. Yeah.
Yeah. What was that job like?
Dude, it was a nightmare. I mean, it was good. The pay was good. I had seniority enough where I could kind of do whatever I wanted. The
Mm.
managers literally told me, because I would duck out from my lunch to go do like commercial auditions and stuff like that. And I'd be
Oh,
gone for like
sick.
sometimes like an hour, 2 hours. And I'd come back and they'd be like, "Where the fuck were you?" And I'm like, "No, everything's fine. Don't worry about it." Because I was one of the few people in the building that could fix computers. So I knew I was valuable.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
they told us, they're like, "Listen, we're not going to fire you. We need you, but just get your work done and keep your head down." I'm like, "Yeah, I will. Fine, whatever." So I'm grateful for that opportunity, and also how it taught me all the tech stuff. Like the software and fixing my own computers and shit like
Yeah.
that. But especially living in Toronto, I'm like, I don't know how people live in Toronto and not have like a decent job kind of thing. Like it was
You
so
have
expensive
to.
to live there. And even when I quit, I finally was booking enough gigs to quit. I was like, I'm gonna be fucking toast. Like I don't know how I'm gonna do it. But thankfully, so I somehow started booking commercials after that and then
Mm.
didn't have to go back. But I was like immediately trying to be like, what other jobs could I do? And yeah,
To keep
luckily,
yourself going. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, what was the process like for going from Canada to the US to, because it was like you and Julia are both going to the US. So it's like you both have to kind of get your paperwork and all your shit together at the same time. And then I
Yeah.
think you like has drove down there too.
We did. Yeah, we got a lawyer and it was like I think 15 grand or something for the green
Damn.
card, and even that's not guaranteed. Like I knew people that would get denied after paying tens of thousands of
I would
dollars. So
lose it.
oh my God. So thankfully we got that. And also it was green card versus visa. Like because I know people on visas, but you can only work so many different jobs on a visa. And also
Mm.
I heard nightmares from like people in casting being like, hey, if anyone's on a visa, you can't, like certain studios won't cast you kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
So it's green card only. And I've seen certain auditions down here where it's like green card only. So I made sure to get that. And then, yeah. And then it was New Year's Eve, 2015. Julia just performed at Massey Hall that night for their big New Year's Eve party.
Wow.
And then I co-headlined Yuck Yucks the same night. And then the next day we shoved all of our shit in a car and drove away forever.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was, yeah, 42-hour drive to LA
Woo!
with kind of no plan. We didn't have reps down here. We didn't have anything. We were just
No.
like, we trust in our talent.
You had
And
a place, right? Like you had a place lined up?
it was a friend's mom's guest house. And it was like a friend
Oh,
that we met one time at a wedding,
wow.
like months ago.
You're like, hey, remember that offer? We're gonna take you up on that.
Yeah, I think she said it in passing, and I was like, you
Yeah,
shouldn't
yeah.
have said that. You shouldn't. We're like seagulls, man. We'll take every fucking crumb.
Yeah,
And
yeah, damn.
but luckily, she was like cool as hell. We still talk to her every now and then, and she let us stay in her guest house for like I think it was like 6 months,
Just
and
enough time to kind of
just
find,
enough time
see
to get
places and
things going and like
yeah.
build some credit, which is another big thing which you don't think about. You're like, oh my Canadian credit doesn't change over. I have zero credit, so it's like
Ooh.
it was just a lot of weird bullshit. And also the Canadian dollar sucks my ass too. So it's just transferring money over from Canada to States and then just watching like hundreds of it just dissipate. And you're like, well, where the fuck
That's
did that
why
go?
that's why because I freelance and I always try to work with only American companies so that when I get paid in Canadian, it's more than what I had originally like,
Oh yeah.
like said, this is how much I cost, whatever.
It
I can't
sucks.
imagine. Yeah, that
It
sucks.
sucks. I have the Canadian money just sitting in a bank account in Canada I don't even touch. I'm just like I
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
even.
yeah.
Canadian money to me right now is just like fun money. I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
use it
yeah.
for anything
If I go there, I have so
serious.
much of it.
Yeah, I just use it for fun. It's like theme park money. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, I love always asking comedians too about like your worst bomb on stage and what you did in that moment when it happened and like maybe how it kind of helped you or affected you in any way.
Man, that worst bomb story changes every couple of years. I've
When a
had
new one
many.
happens.
The first and biggest one that comes to mind is I finally got on the main room at the Comedy Store. This was after being here for a couple of years, and like begged. I was like, I need to get in this main room. I'm more than capable. Blah blah blah. Talked to the booker. Finally got on there, and it's shotgun style. So the comedian before you has to introduce you. There's no host,
Yes. Yeah.
and the comedian before me was Dane Cook.
No.
Yeah, and so we're sitting in
Fuck.
the yeah, I'm like sitting in the green room with Dane Cook, and it's just me and him. And I'm like, hey man, you're bringing me up, by the way. And he's like, okay, what's your name? I'm like, Matt O'Brien. And he goes, Mart O'Brien. I'm like, no, no,
Mort?
no, no. He kept saying Mart. I don't know why. And I'm like, no, it's definitely Matt O'Brien. Just make sure you say that. That's fine. And then he kind of just whatever, ignores me, and then goes on stage. And you're supposed to do like 15 minutes. He does like 30 or 40 minutes.
Of course
Like,
he does.
just fucking blows it. And then brings me up very, like, he's getting a huge applause at the end. And he's like, all right, your next comic's Mart O'Brien. And I'm like,
No.
fuck, fine. And I like walk out, and he's just whatever, like gives me a little weak handshake.
Yeah.
And then I see like 40 people stand up and leave because they're like, oh yeah, we just saw a big act, so we're gonna get out of here.
Yeah. I'm satisfied. There you go.
Yeah. And it's still pretty full. But then I start.
What time is it? Is it like a late spot too? Like, is
not
it
even not even that late?
11
like
or
10 or 10:30 is not too bad. But I start to I first of all I say, I'm like, oh, I'm Dane Cook. I was like, give it up for him. I was like, then you're probably like, who the fuck is this guy? I was like, not famous at all. Check this out. Started like ripping on myself. But here's the thing with American crowds is if you rip on yourself, the crowd will be like, okay, I guess you're a piece of shit. We'll think that. Like, there's something about Canadian like being self-deprecating where they're like they let you have it, but the Americans are like, okay, so you suck. Okay, got it. So I kind of ripped on myself, and I could feel the crowd being like, okay, he sucks. So why are we listening to him? And I did my first joke, and it was just like silence. It was just pin drop. I looked over, saw my wife in the crowd, and she's like literally like holding her face. And then it was the first time I ever had this where I did my joke, pin drop, and I'm looking around. I'm like, this is the main room of the Comedy Store that I've been working my ass off to get here. And then my mouth just went so dry.
Oh,
it just,
that's the worst.
Like one of those like nervous, dry I haven't had in years. And so I'm like, oh, all right, time to pivot. And then, try to dig my way out of a hole. Started to get little laughs here and there, and then fucking got off. But like, I'm like, I was just a fucking wreck after that because I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I worked so hard to get to LA. This is the biggest room in LA, and I fucking tanked it. And
dude.
Probably never be back. I'm gonna be run out of town. And luckily no one fucking remembers but me. And that's I've been back many times, and it's great. So was just one of those.
Would you have done anything differently?
Not rip on myself. Not
right. That's what you learned. But I guess you wouldn't have learned that unless you did it and then realized like, oh, okay, they're taking me very literally right now. Yeah,
it's especially LA is pure confidence. So
it's got to be like, let me tell you why you should listen to me. Essentially,
exactly.
Like you're a defense lawyer, like for your jokes.
Yeah. I'll represent you. Yeah. It's been in an accident. Call me. That's the whole town is confidence. It's like everyone has come here being like, I'm one of the best, and this is why I should be here. So to hear anything other than that, people are like, all right, fuck it, I don't have time for you, kind of thing. So that definitely changed my attitude to doing stand-up here and kind of everywhere, actually. Just having a confidence in yourself to do it. But yeah, thankfully, I've been back to the main room, and it was great.
It's totally fine.
Totally fine. Yeah.
Now to counteract that, to take that bad taste out of our mouth, what is like a show where it was like perfect, like everything went exactly the way that you wanted it to, you killed, whatever, maybe you were on it with some like cool people, right? One of those experiences where you're like, I'll never forget this.
Well, let me dig through this big pile.
Like, oh, there's so many.
I know.
Years of memories of celebrities and friends.
It is funny as a comic to dwell on the bomb. That bomb story came immediately to my brain. It's always right there.
That's always comedians
in the back. I mean, the one that was like the perfect show to me was also down here in LA. It's a show called Hot Tub. Kurt Braunholer and Kristen Schaal run it. And it's a really hard show to get on. And I finally got on it. And I actually got on it after like a month of touring. I was touring Canada and a bunch of road gigs. And I finally got on the show, but I'm like, I'm so fucking tired. I guess I'll do the show because it's so hard to get on. And I show up, and Conan is there. Conan's like a special guest spot. And
Huh.
this is before I was on his show, like doing
Oh,
like
okay.
sketch on his show kind of thing. And so I was like, he's like one of my heroes. I've always wanted to meet him. And so he shows up in the green room, and I get to hang out with him. He does this showbiz thing where he shakes my hand. He goes, "Hey, good to see you again." I'm
Oh,
like,
I hate that.
and
Yeah,
then I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's nice to
yeah,
hear. Unless he was like, "Oh, you're Matt O'Brien, my head writer."
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I saw your face on the poster. I was like, this guy
yeah,
writes all my shit.
but it was like that alone. I'm like, oh, this is
Yeah.
crazy. This is crazy that I just get to hang out. And I was like, hey, two O'Briens on a show. What a shitty show. Huh? He's like, whatever.
Yeah.
And I go up and I'm just so tired and loosey goosey. But it was just one of those sets where it was just easy and everything worked. And there was like just everything was popping off. And I just came off and I just felt great. And
Hmm.
Conan was like, oh, it was such a great set. And I was like, that's crazy to hear that from you. And then I go in the crowd, and the booker from Fallon was there.
Wow.
And he comes up to me and he goes, that set was perfect. He goes, we want that for the Tonight Show. He goes, I want that on tape. Get that on tape for me. He's like, we're going to put that on TV. He said, Jimmy's going to love it.
That sounds such an LA dude. Like
I know.
I can
And,
picture the guy. I don't know why.
and it was funny because all my friends were there and they all heard that. And they're like, what the hell?
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
that like a script you wrote for him to read?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was like, this is crazy. It was such a crazy night. And it just felt really, really good. And I mean, nothing came of the Tonight Show booking, but to hear that after a set felt really good. So I take
It might as well be the same thing. To hear that
yeah.
it could be on there, you're like, okay, good. I guess that's what I'm going for, right? So
Yeah. It was
yeah.
like it was kind of like right before the pandemic. And we kind of were going back and forth sending tapes. And then pandemic happened. And after he's like, I'm so backlogged. He's like, I don't know if it's gonna happen. And I was like, all right. But at least you liked it.
Yeah,
At least you liked
yeah,
me
yeah.
that one night. So
We'll pick
that
it
was
up
a fun
somewhere
one.
else down the
Yeah.
road.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And that's what I love about like the whole butterfly effect thing too, where you were saying that you were like tired. So I'm like, what if you had just been like, I'm gonna cancel it. I'm too tired to go.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Like,
I can't do that. I can't if it's a comedy show, like the last one I think I canceled was like I had COVID. I literally
you
had the
had
one time
something.
I had
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah.
And
Contagious disease.
yeah, I know. I was like, I will not go. Fine, I
Yeah.
won't go.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's exactly that. It's even when Julia has a show, I'm like, I will go with you just to hang out, just to be around, because you never know who you're going to talk to, who you're going to meet, blah blah blah. And it's like she just did. You know Fahim Anwar? He's
Yes.
yeah, he's one of our favorite comics, and we were just at the Improv the other night because I was in the main room at the Improv and Julia was hanging out. And then Fahim ran into her and they started talking. And then yesterday, he asked her to open for his Bourbon Room show, which is like a theater in Hollywood. And it was like
Oh yeah.
insane. It was such a fun show and Julia killed it. And it's like, yeah, she wouldn't have got that if she wasn't just around.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
No, no,
happened to be
1,000%.
around.
You
Yeah.
have to be out there collecting stories. You can't be like just cooped up in your apartment the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just bopping
yeah,
around,
yeah.
showing face, as they
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, yeah. How is I don't know if this is too personal of a question, but like what is it like being married to another stand-up comedian? Because we know the history of comedians getting together with other comedians and they're like, it never works, and you know what I mean? One headshot household sort of thing. People have that rule.
It makes sense. I mean,
Yeah,
financially, like we keep
yeah.
saying that.
True. You
We're
need a
like,
breadwinner. Yeah.
oh God, we're like, I have so many friends that are like, oh, my wife's a doctor or my
Yeah,
husband's
yeah.
a pharmacist or a lawyer. I'm like, oh man, you got health insurance and everything's fine. Like, why can't one of us have a real job?
Yeah.
But I love it. It's great. I don't know. I love being a goofy idiot, and we're both goofy idiots together. And I mean, the only thing that comes up is we both talk about life experiences on stage. So if something weird happens to both of us, we'll be like, "Oh, I'm using that," or like, you use that, or we'll both try it and see who has the better version of it, kind of
Oh,
on stage
that's
kind of thing.
great. Yeah, yeah.
So that in that sense, but because even just doing like auditions and self tapes and having somebody else here that knows how to do that and is comfortable doing that, and it's great. I mean, yeah, I know a lot of people that it didn't work, but it just happens to work for us, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
great.
everybody has their own dynamics, right? That
Yeah,
work better together. And also too, there's like the, being a comedian and even like doing self tapes and stuff. It's a lot of weird shit that you have to do. Like
yeah.
if you're practicing jokes, to anyone else, you're just talking to yourself.
Oh yeah, no,
But to you,
it's
you're like, I need to do this. And to have someone around that's like completely unbothered by that and they're also talking to themselves.
oh yeah. When she sees me like throwing a green screen over the barbecue in
Yeah.
the backyard and like filming something in my underwear, she's like, "Oh, he's
Yeah.
working.
Yeah.
He's
We'll
being
cut to a
creative."
green screen video of Matt's. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's one of those things, or like it'll be like late night. We'll be watching TV, and I'll run in the office, be like, I just thought of something. I'm going to edit something. She'll understand that kind of thing, and like vice versa
Yeah.
if she just wants to work
I
on
love
stuff.
that.
Because
When did that start for you? Like when did you look at the green screen and go, I'm gonna get out some of these ideas?
I
Because
just
you have like such a unique sense of humor when it comes to that style. Like it's your own style, essentially. Like I don't know if you're inspired by anyone that kind of helped you find that, but when I see your videos, I'm like, I laugh because I see your sense of humor immediately in it. It's
that's
just
nice.
being goofy, essentially, right?
Yeah, I just always was. I remember being a kid watching like weathermen on the news, being and knowing that was green screen. And I was like, what do you mean? I don't understand how that technology works. And then taking video editing in college and stuff like that, and learning kind of how to do it. But then, yeah, it wasn't until I quit my job at Apple, and then I had all this spare time, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna film some shit, and I have time, and I was like, what do you need for a green screen? And they're just like a sheet. Okay. So
Yeah.
I'll get a fucking sheet and learn how to do this. And yeah, I can't really sit still a lot. I need something to do. And that gave me the opportunity to do something stupid all the time,
Mm.
anytime kind of thing. And also when I was in Toronto, when MuchMusic was on the decline as they were dying a very slow, fiery death.
Being
There's
wrenched out by Bell
oh
Media.
god, but their studios were empty, so they had
Yeah.
this big, gorgeous green screen studio. They're like, we're no one's using
Uh,
this. If you want to go there, so I'd go there with my buddy Rodrigo, and we just film stupid shit all day. And like we didn't know what we were doing. We would just show up with a bunch of props, or we'd
that's
dance
great.
around in our underpants and just do shit, and it just kind of escalated from there. And yeah, and now I have a full room that's just a green screen studio
Oh, awesome. You've
in this
just like
house that we live
converted
in.
it. That's
Yeah,
great.
so it's just something extra to do. Yeah, and I always thought it was like simple. I'm like, oh fuck, anyone can do this. But then people were like, yeah, they're like, you have a certain style of doing it, and anything to make yourself stand out, to make myself stand out, especially as like a straight white guy doing comedy.
Sure.
I always
You
feel
need a
like I have to,
signifier, right?
yeah, diversify and be a man of many hats. So one
I,
of them's
I've
green.
I've realized that too. Like there's this thing that we do as humans, and for brands, like as for a person, you need like at least three things that kind of will identify you. For someone who loves your stuff and they want to tell someone, but they can't really remember your name, they'll
Yeah.
have the conversation of like, who's the guy that does the green screen videos? He's a comedian.
Mustache,
He's got a mustache,
Costco.
and they'd be like,
Yeah.
Matt O'Brien.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where you need like three
Something.
signifiers
Yeah.
almost that hit well with the public. So
Yeah.
you
It's
got it.
also something that helped me stand out in LA too, because yeah, being down here and just doing stand up, I gave me such anxiety attacks because I'm like, God, there's so
Mm.
many comedians down here. How the fuck do you stand out? And then I started posting these videos, and they started getting noticed down here. And then I'd show up to comedy clubs and they're like, hey, the fucking green screen guy, you're doing weird green screens. And I was running a green screen show down here at UCB,
Uh,
where I'd have comedians perform in front of a green screen, and then I'd edit them on the spot in a bunch of weird scenarios. I should bring it back, but
Hell yeah, that's an amazing idea.
it was a
Like
lot of work.
I imagine like because it's all in live in the moment or whatever too, right? But if you could film that somehow and get
Oh
it
yeah.
up on YouTube. That would be a hit for sure.
I know. I should bring it back. That literally, I was doing that. I think it was January 2020 is when I was doing it. So it was like one of those, like, had the momentum. And then that UCB, it was UCB sunset. And then when we came back to LA after the pandemic, it was shut down. So it just doesn't exist.
Fuck.
Yeah.
That's so much of that shit happened too. Like I left Toronto in the middle of the pandemic and moved to Ottawa just because it's closer to family. It's cheaper. Like there's still a comedy scene here. Like I could still go and do stand up once everything opens back up again. But it was just also the thought of like all my favorite places in Toronto were closing.
I know.
Like the underground comedy gone. Like,
oh God,
you know what I mean? Like they brought Alta back, but like that was on the rocks for a little bit. Like nobody knew what was gonna happen. So I get
it's fucked. It's fucked.
It's fucked that we lived through that. Yeah,
I know, but there's still some things out there. It's like coming back from pandemic to LA. It was like kind of starting LA over again too, because a lot of the shit was closed and there's a bunch of new shows. So it was like relearning everything over again. So it's yeah.
What did you do when it hit? Did you what did you do when the pandemic hit? Like, did you come back to Canada?
We were in Ottawa too.
Okay.
Yeah, we there was a lockdown notice. So Gavin Newsom said we were going to be on lockdown for 2 weeks here in LA. Yeah. And immediately we were just like, you know what? Let's just drive back to Canada. Because there was like a Trudeau. There was a message from him being like, if you're a Canadian abroad, come home now, kind of thing. And I think he was talking about like people vacationing, but in our heads we're like, I don't know how bad it's going to get.
We're coming.
Yeah, I know. Come, Justin. And then the phrase, the borders being closed, kept getting thrown around. And so we're like, we don't know what that means. And so we just drove back 42 hours again back across the country.
Wow.
And it was at the time where they're like, COVID is a touching thing. So we just weren't touching anything.
No.
We weren't wearing masks or anything, but we were just like wrapping our hands in paper towels at gas stations and like pumping gas and stuff.
Fuck.
And yeah, we just drove so quickly back to Canada and we're like, oh, we'll be in Ottawa at my in-laws' place. We'll just be there for like a month or two. And we were there for 10 months.
Damn.
Yeah, we came back to LA halfway through to like pack up our apartment and put it in storage, which was fucking terrifying as well. And so yeah, we were in Canada. We thought we might not be going back to LA. We were like, we might just stay in Canada because we don't know what the hell is going on down there. But then we eventually drove back to LA and then immediately got vaccinated versus everyone in Canada was like, what the hell? You guys have that already? Like you just got down there. It was completely flip-flop. It was so weird, but yeah. And then, yeah, we had no apartment and we had to get a whole new place. Luckily we got this place, which is like a 3-bedroom house, which was still pandemic-y priced. So it was cheaper than usual. And we made it. We built it back up again.
It worked. Yeah. You're like, I did it once, I can do it again.
I'll do it a million times.
It's the comedian. If there's a will, there's a way. There's a question that I always like asking my guests too towards the end is if you could make a phone call to 15-year-old Matt and give him a piece of advice based on what you know now, knowing it won't affect your current timeline, what would you say?
Oh my God, buy Bitcoin.
If your timeline has Bitcoin, buy it.
Every day. I think about that every day when people are just becoming millionaires instantly. What the hell would I say to 15-year-old? Oh my God, start acting. Be a child actor, because it's like, as I started doing acting, in my mid-20s, and even then felt kind of late. But I'm meeting so many actors here that are on big productions, and they're like, I started when I was like 10 or younger. Wow. And it's just being in the industry. Had I known I was going to be in the industry, I would have worked harder to be in it. But when I was like 15, I was like, I'm going to be a firefighter or something stupid like that, which I never ended up being. But I'd call 15-year-old me and be like, you're a fucking comedian. Like, fucking act like it.
Yeah.
Like, get out there and work at it and do it. So to have a head start versus when you start when you're 22.
Yeah, I guess like but again, you didn't know that you were going to even make it into an attempt into that industry, so it's like
Yeah, I had no idea.
yeah, how could you possibly? I'm going to shout out, do you have any like shows coming up that you want people to check out? I don't know how many LA listeners I have, but this
Oh
will come out
God.
Friday.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing shows around town, like the Comedy Store and stuff like that. I'm in a musical.
Go check out the musical.
It's at Dynasty Typewriter. It's happening at least once a month. The next one's on July 21st. It's a Fast and the Furious parody musical, as stupid as that sounds. But it's a fun one. And yeah, I'll post all my shows on my Instagram and stuff like that. So just check that
Right.
out.
Check all that out, folks. Matt, thanks for making the time, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's good to see you, man.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. All right, I hope you have a great rest of your night. I'll let you
Yeah,
know
you
when this
too.
episode comes out.
Sounds good, buddy.
All
We'll
right,
talk to
later,
you soon.
dude. Peace.
You've been listening to The Johnny Rogers Show. New episodes air every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.